Today I want to talk to you about home and belonging, collected stories of foreign women married to Nigerians, and there is a collection of stories from a number of women in very different situations, coming from many countries, different, and living in different places in Nigeria, some more educated than others, and one in polygamous marriage. The introduction says that cross-cultural marriages were an anomaly in the early days, particularly in the 60s and 70s. There was so little information about Africa and a lot of misinformation. The color and race issue too stood in the way of women from Europe, North America, Russia, and Asia establishing long-lasting relationships with African men. There was resistance and estrangement from family and community on the one hand, and then a sense of uncertainty as to what lay ahead on the other side. Some women left what was home and crossed the oceans with their husbands to make a dwelling in Nigeria. Others met their husband on neutral ground in a third country. The journey to Nigeria in this case was a return home for the husbands, but was the start of another adventure for the women concerned. In most cases, the marriage and life thereafter involved a journey into the unknown. The writing shows the vast differences, geographical and cultural, that the women had to cross, to traverse, to settle in Nigeria, raise families, and be productive in terms of employment. So there are lots of stories, but I will just read some portion here and there. One was married with the husband for 56 years. The husband is now deceased, but she came back to Britain. She was from Britain. She said Okoro had tried to prepare me for life in Nigeria while we were still in England. He had given me the Igbo name Otonaho, with the expectation that his family members would come to know me by that name, and they did. He had even begun to teach me to speak some Igbo, yet nothing had prepared me for the culture shock I experienced when I landed in Lagos Airport in December 65 with 2 toddlers and a 7-month-old baby in tow. I had barely had a glimpse of my husband when a host of his relations suddenly appeared and swarmed around us in an exuberant welcome. We felt quite overwhelmed by it, and the journey from the airport to our new home remains a complete blur to me, save for the joy of knowing that we were once again reunited as a family. Unfortunately, my hopeful expectation of a private moment with my husband, after almost a year apart, had remained on hold when I discovered that my home was filled with still more people waiting for us. We were greeted with traditions, dancing, clapping, as Okoro proudly introduced us to his large family and close friends. And that is just one of the stories. Another person that came from Jamaica says that she grew up very fond of sea fish, and she had arrived in Nigeria and joined the husband, Simeon, in Oshobo, a city many miles inland. And then she starts telling the story. Another story is that of a lady who was married for 35 years with several children, and eventually the husband told her that he wanted to marry a second wife, and eventually in the morning after the wedding he rushed out to see the second wife and discovered that she had slept on the couch overnight, which meant that if I had not slept in my bed, which she had intended to sleep on, I would have been the one on the couch. Every feeling of guilt or pity disappeared, and she realized that she was a victim. On returning to Jos, I had no doubt about what I was going to do. I cleared out my house, divided our family photographs, headed on to Kano as fast as possible with my daughter in a bag. I was ready to join the rest of my children and my new life with apprehension and not knowing what was ahead, but ready to embrace it. And she left. Another story is a lady that married, and then the first visit to Nigeria was for a 3 month furlough at the end of the Nigerian Civil War with our 2-year-old daughter. We arrived in Lagos, and I was struck by how different Lagos was from Addis Ababa because she was from Ethiopia. So many more people and cars on the streets, and so much warmer than Addis Ababa. We only stayed 2 days and then took a domestic flight to Jos. I enjoyed the slower pace of life there and the beautiful plateau landscapes. So you have all kinds of stories there, and you can see the very, very many differences. But one thing that these ladies have in common is that most of them, in fact, were married abroad before rejoining Nigeria. Some stayed abroad while the Civil War raged and came back after. Many of them were married in the 60s or thereabout. So just try and read that book. It's really worth it. It's an eye-opener. So happy reading.